Okay, we are here in our home studio, Athens, Georgia, home of the Bulldogs. And today, we're going to be talking about that NIL money. Ain't that what you call that? Now, Al, you don't have to defer to you. You know, you more of a college fan and knowledge of college ball than I am.
Yeah.
So you had some your thoughts about college leaving
NIL.
NIL.
NIL is a big thing right now with college athletes, and actually I favor it. I've always favored it. I'm glad that it's here, and I hope it doesn't ever leave collegiate athletics. I think the players give a lot to their schools, and the schools have always been able to basically profit off these young kids, these student athletes, and the compensation for these athletes is well overdue, in my opinion. And
Okay.
the way that these kids are getting paid is substantially.
Yeah, we agree on something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I'm very, very comfortable with it. Like I said, it's very much overdue. I think the kids, the compensation should, I think there's a little bit more of a structure that should be held with this, from freshmen to position, to sophomores in positions and juniors positions. So I think a little bit more structure needs to be defined with what they earn. And I think over a given time, I think they'll treat this a lot of times, pretty much in my opinion, like a salary cap. I think, and so your thoughts about that? Well, I know you agree with it, but I do think a little bit more structure. So when the NCAA said, yeah, we'll go ahead and pay collegiate athletes, they just said, yeah, there was no structure in place then.
See, what has always fascinated me is the selective free enterprise. You know, they believe in free enterprise as long as it benefit the powerful. But when it benefit the smaller, then they want some kind of structure. Just like in the NBA or the NFL, they got salary caps. And I'm sure that's coming to at some point and with the NIL money. But I heard you mention the other day that players being able to go on the NFL practice field
And return to college.
and return to college after they determine that they ain't gonna play. Now I got mixed feelings about that.
We
But
both do.
what's your thoughts about that? And why would you not?
That's a tough one, man. I think they're dealing with this currently right now. And the one thing that when you and I talked about this the other day, I think we both have mixed feelings about that. Especially me. I feel like if an athlete has, and we're talking about the NFL right now. I think the basketball athletes have already been able to do this as long as in the past.
Right,
If they didn't sign with an agent or they didn't play. Now in football, in fact, they're currently talking about quite a few of these guys already that if they're only going to make the practice squad, they can actually return back to collegiate football
Right.
and earn more in NIL than they actually would, a lot more than they would in the playing on the practice squad if they make the team. So no,
Essentially, it's the same thing been going on with basketball. You know, they're able to test the waters,
yes,
enter the draft, and if they're not drafted at a higher number,
right,
then they go back to college.
right.
You know, and they afford them the luxury of being able to do that. And of course, it messes up the order of their recruiting. You know, if you recruited a 5-star player or a 4-star player and committed to bringing him into your program, and then all of a sudden you eyeballing a, a guy that entered the draft, and you thinking that he could help your team, considering the fact that the man is winning and there's zero tolerance for not winning, a coach is more inclined to try to get that player that he feels like he can win with.
Well,
You know,
I absolutely agree. I think what happens is now the rope with coaches is a lot tighter than what it used to be. I think that all the coaches right now is in a win now mode. So if they feel that they can get a player to come back and go back to college and help them win right now, that's what it's all about. I think that's the way coaches see it,
right?
and they're looking at their job. their job security is on all, which is why a lot of times the players that's coming up from high school, that's going and recruited, they don't recruit players now that's ready, that aren't ready to play collegiately now, because they're ready to get somebody. That's what made the transfer portal so big. So a lot of times the transfer portal, they're ready to get some players that's already developed. They're doing that. They've been doing that in basketball now. Almost like I don't have the time to develop these kids because my job is in jeopardy.
Exactly, my
know.
job. And then you look at the way Indiana won this year.
Yeah, a lot of older
You
players.
know, they talk about that, but then the little that they recognized that Miami had just as old of a team, you know.
And they had a pretty old
Yeah,
team.
but it wasn't older than Miami team, which is
Okay.
kind of, you know, ironic that they would only point out Indiana team. But, you know, my point is the demand for winning is right now.
Is now.
And you know, you can't hardly blame a coach who would choose that player, because I personally think that you give me a high school player that perhaps came from a school, and I like to use as an example that, especially at a wide receiver, he didn't have a quarterback in high school. The coach's son was a quarterback. He ran a beautiful route and went downfield and never got the ball thrown to him, but was a great athlete, and get off into some college program and get developed and get the ball thrown to him and shave a couple of tenths off his 40 time
Right.
and grow a couple of inches. And I'm really describing somebody I've seen this experience with,
Okay.
you know, and when and him as a senior ball player versus a 5-star freshman, I'm taking this guy every time.
Yeah.
First of all, he's hungry. And nobody told him his whole life how great he was.
Right.
You know, matter of fact, he might have felt disrespected when he showed him, like Trinidad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's another guy, Trinidad Shambliss, who's the Ole Miss quarterback, who has been granted, I think it's a 6th season. He went through the course to try to get that waiver, and he got that. So he's returning to Ole Miss. And actually, he was one of my favorite quarterbacks last year in the whole entire country.
Yeah.
Trinidad Shambliss came out of nowhere, but it was an opportunity. You know, the player that was actually playing before him got hurt. And once that player went down, he took full advantage of that opportunity. Because they had another quarterback there for the first 2 games that got hurt. So after the first 2 games, and that opportunity, he was granted that opportunity, and he never looked back. And he's their quarterback. Now, where he would have been drafted in the draft, nobody knows, because he never took that route right now. But from my understanding, his NIL valuation is somewhere around $5 million. So, you know, we don't know, and I think that's why the players, you know, are trying to look at whether or not if a player makes a practice squad, that player is not going to make the full type of money that he would make. Like
Matter of fact, I checked into that app. On the practice squad, it comes down to about $250,000 a year.
Okay.
You know, and that money right there, going back to college, in a lot of cases paying $1 million, $500,000.
Yeah.
If it came down to you making a choice of whether you're gonna make that money, what you gonna do? You're going to get that money, man.
Yeah, I think the only problem that I have about this, when we look at the totality of what happens by them granting and allowing people to come back to after you played in a professional game, because that means if you're playing in the preseason, you've already become legitimately a professional at that point in time. And at some time, practice, even in the preseason, guys they're getting a contract, they're getting paid. There's levels of how much money you're earning at that, depending on your position and where you were drafted at. But to return back to the college, like I mentioned to you when this news came down, is that I feel like I think you're stunning the growth and impeding the opportunity of some players in collegiate ball that already are I think that player coming back is taking away those opportunities again. But the coaches don't care, because all they care about is winning.
Well, that's what they got to care about. And then, you know, you say take away those opportunities. And I always believe in the fact that the cream won't rise to the crop. If you're going to be great coming out of high school, you're going to eventually find your place on the football field on Sunday. That's just my belief. And let's think about it from just a a regular job perspective. You know what I mean? If you went to a job and somebody promised you, maybe an agent or whatever, promised that you was gonna, you had what it takes to make it at the next level. And when you got there, it didn't turn out to be what you expected to be. So the team you left or the jobs you left said, well, we'll have you back because you were so productive here, and we're willing to pay you more money than you would play on that practice squad. Come on back. I mean, why would you go back? I mean, as a person now,
Yeah.
from a job, if I can get more, matter of fact, I've had some jobs that I was promised the world, and when I got there, was nothing like they promised, and guess what? We got this many sales, we doing this, and guess what?
It happens.
Yeah.
You and I in the same line of work for years, for so many years, and but when I look about it, when I look at the situation, and I'm saying to myself, at some point in time, bro, I think because of where we are and because we moved into NIL, again, there was no structure. When they said, yeah, well, you can pay players, and then I look at it, and I'm also, when it was first handed down, the first thing that I thought was that already the collegiate players that are already playing on their, so let's just use for an example. You have a wide receiver that was drafted maybe in the 5th round of the NFL, and drafted in the 4th or 5th round. That's kind of a little bit of a long shot unless you go out and show out in front of and on the team and
depending on what quarterback you got. Throwing the ball and might determine whether
right.
Get a real good fair look at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so, but you got another player, you got 2-3 other players at this school. This guy chooses to come back to a collegiate team. Now, these 2 guys on this particular team may be promising players. Now he comes back and the coach is saying, well, you know what? This guy left, I'm gonna play. So that's what I mean by you impede. That's what I mean. You impede the progress.
It's a very unfortunate thing, but
exactly.
It happens in the real world all the time.
Right.
Somebody is not gonna have the job that somebody else wanted.
Right.
I mean, it just and let's keep it real. We talking about professionals at the collegiate level or the professional level. They are now pros. They're getting paid. Those are regular jobs.
It's almost like a farm team. When you look at baseball, you have the Atlanta Braves, use them for an example, and they used to have the Macon Braves, which was a single A, and then you have the Gwinnett Braves. So I look at, the way NIL as a farm team.
There's only one caveat to that, is that I make an argument that some of those college programs make a whole lot more money than some of the professional teams.
Yeah.
So I can't really say.
I think when I saw it the other day, I was looking at, I think the highest evaluation is somebody around, I think, almost $6 million for a player. I think was the highest evaluation that I saw per year, that is.
Right.
Per year as the highest evaluation. And typically those are going to be quarterbacks.
Yeah,
they're going to be your quarterbacks or your receivers. And I think it was a quarterback. Actually, I was kind of confused, and because I think it's a Miami quarterback. I think he got like a 5.8 evaluation, NIL evaluation, which I thought other people like a little bit higher, the receiver out of Ohio State. I'm going to stop and say this: please like and subscribe, please.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Let me forget to say that.
Yeah, really good. But yeah, I just think and you and I both talked about that, and I really think I think a little bit more thought. I would rather than the NCAA and the schools get involved before legislation, the government gets involved and try to. I don't want them involved. Yeah, so we definitely don't want them involved.
The government involved to fix anything, because they can only further screw it up.
Exactly, that's my point. Like with the NCAA, and let the coaches give their thoughts and the players let them figure this out.
Let's talk about the free market. Why can't we just let the free market sort it out?
Well, you're saying basically like the free market dictated.
Because, you can't have, if you believe in the free market, and I do, let the market decide what is value of the value of a house, value of a car, like it's an old saying in the car business. The car is worth what somebody will pay for.
What somebody will pay for it.
And the same thing what a player is, they'll work what somebody's
Right.
willing to pay.
Right,
You know, and to put a cap on it, man, is just to protect the interest of the parties that are using that talent, you know, or taking advantage or not taking advantage of it because it works both ways, or just hiring that talent.
right.
You know, it works both ways. So if somebody's willing to pay them, why not let them pay it? I mean, why do it need a governance at all? As far as I'm concerned, let the market take care of it, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Well, like and subscribe.